Everybody's friendly neighborhood game master Zach Hall here, coming with a second video of my first look reading live through the Monsters of the Week core rulebook from Evil Hat. If you haven't checked out the first video where I start from page 1 of the PDF, please go that way. The introduction, the basics of the system, and check out a couple of playbooks. Looked 2. I'm going to keep pushing through, and there might be a video later where I go back and look at more playbooks and playbooks from other books, because I know they're out there. But I read enough to kind of understand what a playbook looks, some of the playbook moves beyond basic moves, and what character progression looks. So we're going to jump back in with the Get Ready for Action chapter in the Monster of the Week rulebook. Here's a process. Once you've all reached the introduction section, you'll take turns introducing your hunter to others. We saw that in the playbook. I thought it was really cool how it gives you a list of options to pick for every other hunter, every other player at the table. What are you good at? What drives you? What personality traits stand out? Might have some questions for you. Each take another turn, this time picking history. That's the significant shared. Oh, we saw that in each playbook. Let's see if there's an option you to assign, but it's not clear which hunter would best fit. Ask the group if anyone wants to volunteer. Cool. This is just describing what's actually in the playbooks. So to get started, the keeper will have prepared a mystery for you to investigate. That's I really want to see the keeper section of the rulebook to see what does a mystery actually look like? How much is prepared ahead of time, and what is a framework given to be able to come up with it on the fly. When I was running 5e consistently, I was a really good pantser. Playing games by the seat of my pants as opposed to prepping a lot ahead of time. I'm comfortable in that, and when I ran Fate games, all of that was improvised outside of 2 maps out of 12 sessions, but it just kind of depends on what the system has there for you. But considering how popular Monsters of the Week is, I'm sure there's really good system in place. If you have a move that is triggered at the beginning of a mystery, you should make it now. The Chosen and Initiate have moves that always move at this point, and then Divine, Expert, Flake, and Spooky all have moves that can take place now. If you picked one of those moves, make it now if it's mandatory, or decide if you want to if it's optional. We saw that in the Chosen, that there's the Chosen has a move, gives them some insight into the mystery. I guess it's one of those things, as a keeper, you want to know when you have a player at the table that's going to have one of those moves, because you will probably have to prep that as part of your mystery prep ahead of time. When you are playing your hunter, actually you're the hero in the story, because you are, that you make your own destiny, find the damn monsters and stop them, play your hunter like they're a real person. Think your hunter would role-playing game good basics. Even though all those things are true for every system, I would say this is not Monster of the Week specific. These are things I would want any player playing in a game with me at a table to do, even if we were playing a more rules-forward game, Pathfinder. You got to be the hero, you got to be proactive, you got to blah, blah, blah. Maybe to find the damn monsters and stop them. Obviously, definitely part of this system. Probably, I don't play highly political games because that requires too much prep, or political campaigns in my D20 based games. That's usually find the damn monsters and stop them is pretty good advice for anybody playing at my table. But when you get into a lot of fight, you might take a lot of harm, but hunters are lucky and heal quickly. Use luck to avoid harm if you need to. Alternatively, you can hold on until the end of the fight and then take a break to rest up and heal. For the full harm and healing rules, they're coming up. You need to work out what's behind each situation, then work out how to find it, what its weaknesses are, then kill it. The game is a conversation. This is an improvisational game, which you create a story together. Story emerges from a conversation between the players, with the keeper describing the initial situation, the rest of the players describing what their hunters do in response. This leads to an ongoing back and forth between the keeper and hunters. Keeper will ask you questions and decide how the inhabitants of the game's world react based on your answers. Also presents you with situations and crises to do with the monster you're hunting and its potential victims. These require new decisions. Your hunter, keep your agenda in mind. Hunters that make moves to find the monster and to defeat it. Moves are moments of danger and uncertainty. You never know how they're going to turn out. Cover all the things. Your hunter's moves cover all the things you can do where the game's rules get involved in the story. The moves are it. The 8 basic moves, and then any additional rule book or playbook move, and that's it. Otherwise, that's where the rules step in. If it isn't in a rule, it is just narrated. Most of the time, you'll be describing what your hunter says, where they go, or what they do. That goes for everything that a normal person could do in situations of failure would not be interesting or where there's no particular danger. Okay, let's look at this example. Normally, I don't read these, but since this is a kind of a new style for me, I want to make sure I kind of get it. Archer is checking out the site of a monster attack. There's blood and guts all over the place, and police have walked in and out of the area. Archer starts to try to track where the monster went after the attack. When she makes the investigate a mystery move, what does she discover? Chris realizes that a ghoul is sneaking up on him. He gets out his sawn-off shotgun and blasts it in the face as it leaps for him. Does Chris get hurt? He makes the kick some ass move to find out how bad his injuries are and what happens to the ghoul. Interesting. It would be hard for me as a keeper to let that become a narrative situation. You didn't realize you were getting snuck up on. You're getting attacked. Pull out your gun to shoot, and all those things are not separate things. Of making a roll to see, did you see the monster? Oh, you did, but it is when it is in the air attacking you. Can you get off an attack in time? Roll to see, can you get a shot off before it hits you? You do, but it doesn't keep him from also getting hit. You roll to hit him, and I guess, but the fact that the keeper doesn't have any rolls is an adjustment too, which I think is good for me to I have to remember that with the singular kick some ass move. The ghoul I wouldn't roll to see what the ghoul does. Apparently, the character, the hunter, realizes he's getting attacked. He narrates, I would to pull out my shotgun and shoot him back. Sure, sounds great. Let's roll your kick some ass move to determine that is the singular thing, to find out how bad his injuries are. What are degrees of success? Does it depend on every playbook? Because I read some of the moves, or is it up to the keeper to kind of to figure out I should just keep reading. These are all the things I'm thinking about in my head as I read this. The fact that this is one roll, it didn't make sense at first because of I haven't adjusted my way of thinking, but remembering that the keeper doesn't make rolls, of course the player would roll just to see how much he gets hurt. But it has to be a conversation between the keeper and the player. What are we trying with the roll? What are we trying to determine? And how do we determine it? How do we determine in a singular roll how much the ghoul is hurt and how much you, the player, get hurt if both of you are hitting each other as a part of one move? Key elements of the use of moves is you have to make the move. This means that if you want to, for instance, manipulate someone in the game, you need to describe your hunter doing that. How do you ask? What do you offer to make them do what you want? Why would they believe your offer is genuine? For example, Alan, the keeper, the flayed one is racing you to the car, and it looks like it's going to get to you before you can close the door. Mark, what do you do? Mary, the playing her hunter, Mark, I kick some ass, which is a move. Alan, what are you doing? Tell me how you are kicking some ass. I'm going to smash it out of the way with my baseball bat so I can get in the car. You're not really getting into a fight. What's more important, killing the flayed one or getting to the car? By killing it, I guess, I'll stop running and just start smashing on the head. Sure, the flayed one brandishes its skinning knife. As it grabs you, it screams, "You'll become one of us now, hunter." Now roll, kick ass. Alan, the keeper, was trying to determine, are you trying to move through and get to the car, or are you trying to get into a fight? Because if you're trying to get into a fight, then that's a kick-ass roll. If it's not, Googling all the basic moves, because I can't remember and I want to make sure I'm keeping up. I don't actually see another move that would have worked. Potentially Act Under Pressure is the only one that I can think of. And I might be getting ahead of myself, but I pulled up the Hunter a cheat sheet that Evil Hat has published as a reference sheet for hunters. And it says on Kick Some Ass, on a 7 or above, you and whatever you're fighting inflict harm on each other. And then the amount of harm is based on the established dangers in the game. That usually means you inflict the harm rating of your weapon, and your enemy inflicts their attack's harm rating on you. There's no such thing as armor. Well, there is armor, but it looked really rare, and it was rating 1, rating 2. Not sure how that works. We'll see that. And then on a 10 plus, you can choose an extra effect, gaining an advantage, inflicting terrible harm, suffering less harm, or force them where you want them. Doesn't exactly say what happens when you roll less than a 7. If you are actively fighting something, I would assume that means that you, the player, the hunter, doesn't get to inflict harm, but that it would still, you would still, the fact that maybe, did I have a chance to actually read the details and skip over it earlier in my last video? I can't remember. I don't think having these descriptions of the actual mechanics behind each move is helping. It works the other way too. If you were describing what you were doing, someone might notice that you were making one of the moves. In that case, go ahead and roll the dice to see what happens. You get to the place the body was found. You can still see some blood stains on the concrete, and there's some scratches that might be related to the attack. I want to carefully check the blood stains to work out how she was killed. Is it a blood spray for a torn throat? Or did she bleed out slowly from a wound, or what? That sounds like you're investigating a mystery. Why don't you roll? And sometimes the keeper will ask you questions to clarify what's going on. That's cool. For the game to work, everyone needs to clearly understand what's happening. Make sure you answer in as much detail as you possibly can. This is the thing about playing these fiction-forward, super improvised games. This is true for more even rules forward games, but especially true for a game Monster of the Week. And I'm saying this based on my experience of Fate, which seems similar. The moves and ratings is mechanically works a little different, but the core concepts and the mission of the game is the same. Wherein I sometimes have players that look at their character sheet and say, I want to strike with my longsword. In a game, Pathfinder, that works. We're in encounter mode. Let's talk in specifics as much as we can. And sometimes with new players, they fall on either end of the spectrum of I want to describe the fiction of what I'm seeing in my head, what I'm doing, and then figure out what does that look based on what's on my character sheet. Which becomes a problem because if you don't know the box that the character sheet puts you in, then you can be describing something that you just can't do, which is why Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons, you do have to know your character sheet really well. And when you don't, it puts a lot of effort and a lot of strain on your GM or DM in order to rein you in. The opposite end of the spectrum, players that really do know their character sheet well and are thinking about it in terms of a video game, or in terms of thinking of it as a game instead of a piece of fiction. They're only thinking about, I will stride 20 out of my 25 available feet that I am within distance of my longsword. I will use a single action to hunt prey, and then a single action to flurry and make 2 attacks with my longsword and my short sword in each hand. Great for a GM because it means this player knows exactly what they're doing, but you sometimes lose a little bit of the story of the fiction element, where in an ideal world, you're kind of doing both or somewhere in the middle zone of that spectrum. In Pathfinder D&D, erring on the side of the latter of overly describing or being overly specific with the actions on your character sheet. Monsters of the Week, I would really want to make sure that my players, if I was running a game, are staying as fiction focused as possible, describing to me as fiction in universe, in game, what your hunter is doing. And then after you describe, let's figure out what your move is going to be. The moves are generic or broad, that we can find one that works. We have to find one that works. They cover everything. Describe to me what you want to do. In this example here, page 98 of Mary, I'm wanting to check the blood stains to work out how she was killed. Is it blood spray from a torn throat? You can see Mary is in the scene, but obviously, since we're improvising theater of the mind here, I want to see, can you describe to me the scene of the specifics of what I need to see to be able to move this story forward? And then it's the keeper, this move, investigating a mystery. Does that make sense to you? Cool, we're on the same page. Let's roll a investigative mystery. That happened. That luckily I didn't have to fight that battle when I was GMing and running a Fate campaign. That players were very in the story, in fiction. Part of that was that it was being broadcast. It was an actual play we were on. cameras and mic'd, and we had viewers, and players knew they were playing for an audience. So they wanted to improvise and act as these characters. Where if you're playing at home at a table with your friends, or even if you're playing online, but it's not being broadcast, acting might not be everybody's first instinct. I'm not saying you have to act in order to play Monsters of the Week, I don't think, or any game in this style, but it does really help, especially just keep you in the fiction. Just enjoy doing what you're doing. And I think if you went into Monster of the Week wanting to play it completely based off your character sheet, and we're really engaging with the story and the fiction of the game that was happening at the table, I don't think you would enjoy it nearly as much. But I do think everybody could. I think everybody can enjoy both games. It's just, it takes practice and it takes a mental shift. It takes getting used to doing something different and occupying a different mental space, or at least for me. I probably shouldn't be prescriptive. I've learned that I play my goals and what I enjoy about the hobby is not how everybody enjoys as a hobby. Doing things or the goals I have, or what makes me feel I'm having fun at a game, is when everybody else is having fun. Maybe you automatically are acting, and this type of game would come really easily to you. Pathfinder, you go into, you're easily acting out in a role playing, even in combat, your player or your character, your PC, and then you're having to put in some extra work to kind of make sure that your fiction lines up with actions and that you have available to you on your character sheet, or spells that are available to you. And I could totally see this game, Monster of the Week, being way less, should move a lot faster, because it doesn't seem there's really an encounter mode. You're rolling whenever it happens, but you could roll one roll for a lot of things can happen inside of one roll. You just keep moving forward. That was a huge sidebar. Jump back into reading. Now my camera's all janky. Rolling the dice. Often the rules for a move will tell you to roll, say, plus cool. This means you should grab 2 everyday 6-sided dice, roll them and add them together, and then add whatever number is written down on your hunter's cool. If it says something else instead of cool, usually another rating, then add that number instead. If you were told to roll plus weird, roll 2 dice and add your weird rating, blah, blah, blah. If you have a negative rating, -1, then you subtract from your total instead. Yep. The move description will say what the different results mean. Usually 7 or higher is good, 10 or higher is really good, 6 or lower is a miss, which means the keeper will have an opportunity to screw your hunter over. Example, I need to roll manipulate someone. That's a plus charm roll, and my charm's +1. I roll the dice and get a 2 and a 5, so your total's a 9. That's a partial success for manipulate someone. Okay, cool. Here's the bonuses that you might have heard me mention, but not really know what they did when looking at playbooks. +1 forward, what does that mean? If you get +1 forward, you get +1 on your very next roll only. It makes sense. I don't love that phrasing, the terminology for that, but if that's what works, it works. But we saw that that is extra in the gain an advantage effect of if you roll a 10 plus. Usually seems one of the things you could do is take the roll's result and then get a +1 forward, or give a +1 forward to somebody else. Example, another hunter can give you a bonus of +1 forward as the result of a move. The next thing that happens is that you charge in to attack a monster. You get +1 on your kick some ass roll. If you decided to use magic instead to cast a protection spell, then you would have gained +1 on that roll. Once you've used the bonus, it's gone. If you have to describe exactly what you're doing, you can just jump in. You get the +1 next time. Ongoing, if you get +1 ongoing, you get +1 to every roll you make until the situation no longer applies. For example, if you read a bad situation, you might be awarded with +1 ongoing while using an escape route you spotted. You get the +1 on all rolls while escaping via that route, but nothing more once you have escaped. You also get no bonuses if you don't try to escape via the way you spotted. That's really, really cool. Easy way of, obviously not a super math forward game, but easy way of what you did was extra impactful and worth the risk of making a move. Since the moves all have this inherent risk of, if I roll poorly, the keeper's going to get an opportunity to really screw me over. and love it here. I love that mechanic even more in Modiphius's 2d20 system, which I mentioned in an earlier video talking about non-d20 based games that I've been really enjoying reading and figuring out. The threat mechanic in 2d20 is very cool. If you rolled a complication, you rolled really poorly on something, it gives you, as the GM, the opportunity. I don't really want to screw you over here. I want you to succeed. I don't want to cause a complication. I'm going to take threat, a GM-only resource. I'm just going to bank that complication for later. And there's mechanics of how a GM can use threat. That I'm sure that you could do something like that in Monster of the Week. You rolled a 6, you failed on that. Right now, I'm just going to say you didn't succeed on what you wanted to, and I'm going to keep a note for myself that you've got a complication. I'm not just going to pull it out whenever, but I don't see a use for it right now, but I'm going to use it within the next couple rolls. Or I wonder if there's a way at -1 forward. I don't see a way to complicate what you just did. I'm going to give the next roll you have or the next roll someone else makes a -1 because of the complication that you created. I wonder if that's maybe a feature or it's just maybe something the community has kind of figured out as, hey, here's an additional option for us keepers. All right, pick up with holds. When you get a hold, you'll get a number of points. Each point can be spent 1 for 1 to get a specific effect. The move will list the effects you can spend your hold on. For example, you're interviewing the witness to a monster attack and you make an investigative mystery roll. Your result gives you 2 hold. You can spend your hold, ask the keeper questions from the list in the investigative mystery move. You ask a witness, did you see where the attacker went, and spend 1 hold. Where did it go is one of the questions. Keeper says, as Mr. Henderson, the witness, it scurried over there and pulled up that grating and went in the sewers. As the conversation with the witness continues, you spend the next hold to ask the keeper about the monster's powers. Hey, from all the things they've told me, can I work out any powers? The keeper replies, out of character, okay. Witness descriptions don't agree at all. It must be able to change shape or maybe change memories. Later, the last hold goes to ask the keeper about whether a witness is hiding something. That exhausts your hold, so you don't get any more questions for now. I'm really intrigued by like the terminology and the naming for all these things. +1 forward, +1 ongoing makes sense. And then hold. I have to imagine that there's either this is a holdover from Apocalypse World, like the original Powered by the Apocalypse game that Monster of the Week is based on. It just seems like the word doesn't describe what it does very well, unless this is a bad example of a hold, and hold feels more descriptive in a different situation. I mean, I get mechanically what it's doing. Similar mechanic in like Star Trek Adventures, which runs on Modiphius's 2d20. Sorry that I'm using it as a reference, but it's one that I am like actively engaging with off camera more to kind of like learn it. You can, in that game, you can use a player resource called Momentum, which is a pool shared among the entire player play group, to be able to like ask follow-up questions or additional questions. So the idea of like getting a resource based on a dice result that you can use to ask follow-up questions is like, I mean, obviously incredibly important when the entire point of the game is to like solve a mystery and you're trying to solve a mystery in one session. Okay, so here's the actual descriptions of the basic moves. I wish this was moved up earlier in the book, if I'm being honest. I feel like I was having to guesstimate a lot of like how like the mechanics of a basic move functioned when I shouldn't have needed to. When you act under pressure, so acting under pressure covers trying to do something under conditions of particular stress. Examples: staying on task while Banshee screams at you, barricading a door while the giant rat catches up, resisting mental domination. I feel like if I remember correctly, this is also kind of like a catch-all. Like if something you're doing and you and the keeper or you and the player decide is roll-worthy but doesn't necessarily fit with one of the other moves, that act under pressure is kind of a default. You roll cool with act under pressure on a 10+ success. 7 and 9 basically succeed at a cost, and then on a miss, things go to hell. Help out, you help another hunter with a move they're making. On a 10 or more, your help grants them +1 to their roll. On a 7 to 9, they get the +1 to the roll, but you also expose yourself to trouble or danger. What does that mean? This is one of those things where it's like, okay, like, I mean, obviously, huge, with such an improvised, loose game, it's like, I know it's hard to give an example for that, but I'm just, does this mean? Would be kind of helpful. On a miss, you expose yourself to trouble or danger without helping. So on a, like, it does seem like if you were rolling, there isn't just you failed and therefore the thing you didn't, or the thing you wanted to happen doesn't happen. It's you didn't get what you wanted and it's going to go poorly for you. Like there's going to be a consequence that isn't just the lack of something occurring. Bonuses don't stack if 2 people help out. Hunter only gets +1. Man, that's risky. I mean, you're doubling your chance of, or even maybe like the math adding up, you're highly increasing a chance of giving them a +1, but big chance of there being consequences for the people helping. Investigate a mystery. We've done any number of ways. Anything that might give you more information about what's going on is fair game for an investigate move. You roll sharp. On a 10+, hold 2. On a 7-9, hold 1. Then you can ask one of the following questions. What happened here? What sort of creature is it? What can it do? What can hurt it? Where did it go? What was it going to do? What is being concealed here? On a miss, you reveal some information to the monster or whoever you're talking to. The keeper might ask you some questions which you have to answer. It's important that your attempts to investigate are plausible and consistent with what's happening. For example, if you're using laboratory equipment to investigate evidence, you probably won't be able to learn anything about the monster's magical origins. Keeper's obligated to answer truthfully, but not necessarily in full. It's what you can work out in your current situation and using your current methods. Keeper may choose to describe how something you've just discovered relates to something you've learned previously. The keeper may ask, how do you find that out? And if you don't have a good answer, choose another question instead. That's a good framework. Helpful for keepers and players. Kick some ass. This is used when you're fighting something that's fighting you back. When you get into a fight and kick some ass, roll tough. On a success, 7 or more, you and whatever you're inflicting harm, a success, 7 or more, 50% chance of hitting that. You and whatever you're fighting inflict harm on each other. The amount of harm is based on the established dangers in the game. That means you inflict the harm rating of your weapon and your enemy inflicts their attack's harm rating on you. I wonder if there's like a campaign game-wide scale, like a knob or lever that you can pull of like if you want to play a really dangerous, high deadly game, you increase the dangers where like something might do +1 harm, like everything gets a +1 harm. Or on the adverse side, if you want to have a really like combat low, death low game, like everything takes a -1 harm. Be interesting. Everybody can take 7 harm before you die, but as we saw in the playbooks, you can become unstable. It's like basically a condition of sorts. And every playbook has a different level, like the number of harm it takes to become unstable. We saw the spell slinger became unstable after like 3 harm, where the chosen one didn't become unstable till like 5 or 6. Then if you roll a 10 or more, you can choose an extra effect, gain an advantage, +1 forward, or give +1 forward. You can inflict terrible harm, add a +1 harm, suffer less harm, -1 harm, or force your opponent to where you want them. On a miss, you just get your ass kicked, you suffer harm, or get captured, but don't inflict any harm back. This move is manipulate someone. This move is used when you want to do something for you and they don't want to do it. To get them to do what you're asking, you'll need a good reason. What counts as a good reason depends on what you're asking and your relationship with them. For friends and allies, you might just need to ask. For witnesses to a monster attack, you could tell them you're with the police, or just offer them some cash for answering your questions. Once you give them a reason, tell them what you want them to do, and then roll charm. For a normal person, you get 10+, they'll do it for the reason you gave them. If you ask too much, they'll tell you the minimum it would take for them to do it, or if there's no way they would do it. 7 and 9, they'll do it, but only if you do something for them right now to show that you mean it. If you ask too much, they'll tell you what, if anything, it would take for them to do it. And on a miss, you botched it, you offend or anger the target. Again, not a like just no, it's a no and it's going to be bad for you. For another hunter, on a +10, if they do what you ask, they mark experience and get +1 forward. A 7 to 9, they mark experience if they do what you ask. Not a miss. It's up to that hunter to decide how badly you offend or annoy them. They mark experience if they decide not to do what you asked. I never loved the idea of rolling things on on another PC. Maybe this doesn't come up as much. Again, I've never seen an actual play of it, so I don't know how much this actually happens. Obviously, it depends on the table and the team that you're playing with. I mean, maybe in a game like this, where the fiction is so upfront and your personality and your relationship with people are things that like you worked on and described, like wrote down on a character sheet in your playbook as part of like the introduce yourself. This does encourage you to like act in as your person. In games like Pathfinder, D&D, I generally do not enjoy and don't look for opportunities to get the PCs to roll stuff on each other. I don't like when I don't like asking or getting people to roll insight checks on their party members. I don't like deception checks on other party members. I understand that they happen and they can happen, but I like games where everybody's on a team, like is a team and working towards an end. And of course there's conflict, but I would like that to be like kind of handled and resolved off, like without dice involved. Getting mechanics involved in the relationship between characters, it just gets messy because too often I've seen players not separate out like what's happening at the table. But also the fact that getting experience, like, I mean, that's a huge a reason to do it. And I could see, I wonder if there are keepers that have to curtail this in order to make sure that people aren't gaming the system in order to like gain a ton of experience. If you're doing that, you're playing the wrong game, obviously. If you're trying to game the system in order to be better, do better, in Monsters of the Week, like, this isn't probably not the game for you. Like, this is obviously like, we want to get around and tell a like improvised story inside of this setting. And we're not looking necessarily to like, we want enough rules for there to be like some guardrails, some like, we want there to be bumpers at the bowling alley, but like, we don't want, ton of like predetermined stuff. We don't want to do a ton of math. So like, yeah, it's interesting and not something I'm usually, but I would adjust. Manipulate someone does not normally work on monsters, even if they can reason and talk. You can try and make a deal with one if you really want to, but you don't get to roll to ensure it keeps its side of the bargain. You just have to hope it's an honorable fiend. Good luck with that. Good and fair. If you take the monstrous move Dark Negotiator, then you are allowed to manipulate monsters, at least if they can reason and talk. Of course, a monster probably needs a different sort of reason than normal people. Minions may or may not be susceptible to manipulation. It may be possible to manipulate minions who are human or almost human. Those that are incapable of understanding or reasoning cannot be manipulated. Like someone, if someone's about to suffer harm and you can somehow prevent it, then you can try to protect them. When you protect harm, when you prevent harm to another character, roll tough. On any success, you protect them okay, but you'll suffer some or all of the harm they were going to get. If you get a 10, you suffer little harm. All impending danger is now focused on you. You inflict harm on the enemy, and you hold the enemy back. On a miss, you end up making things worse. I would have loved a little more explanation. What is protect them okay? Like, I know okay is a descriptor on the ladder. I think it's a +1, but you'll suffer some or all of the harm they're going to get. Okay, well, is it some or is it all? Is there a max to it? Is it like, does protect them okay, meaning that they're only going to take one less harm than they would have and you take the one? Or they were going to take 3, you take 1, but now like they get 1 less, but you also take 2 or 3? Kind of needs a more read a bad situation. You look around and read a bad situation. Interesting that this doesn't really have preamble. It's just bad situation. Read it. 10 or more, hold 3. On 7 and 9, hold 1. Well, hold 3. 1 hold can be spent to ask any of the following questions, or one of the following questions. What's my best way in? What's my best way out? Are there any dangers we haven't noticed? What's the biggest threat? What's most vulnerable to me? What's the best way to protect the victims? If you act on the answers, you get +1 ongoing while the information is relevant. And then on a miss, you might misread the situation, or you might reveal technical details to your enemies, which means the keeper can ask the questions above of you. This was similar to investigating. This is one of the situations in a game like Monsters of the Week where I see players of different game styles struggling because it is explicitly metagaming, right? Like, it is explicitly saying, like, I am asking the keeper information, and the keeper is giving it to me as the keeper, not as a NPC, not as some like magical insight. It's a metagame conversation between the keeper and the player. Now, like, I as I'm saying that, maybe the player and keeper can phrase things as if it's an internal monologue that's happening, and you know, the player can say, do I see the best way in? And the keeper can describe it as, you notice a set of doors to the right where you notice that the security panel has a red light instead of a green light, which means that the door is unlocked. Like, you can describe it in fiction, but really everybody comes to the table and it's described in the rulebook as a metagaming conversation, where there are tables in different game styles where that kind of thing is explicitly frowned upon and they don't want it, and you shouldn't do it. And so getting players used to a different style of game on board, or just kind of understanding that, like, yeah, like, this is what's happening. It's okay. You don't have to feel bad. This is explicitly how it works. It's just a little different. When you use magic, say what you're trying to achieve and how you do the spell. We saw how spell casting works, at least for the spell slinger. Not sure like how general as that is. We only looked at the chosen one and the spell slinger book in previous episode. So if you get a 10+ on the weird roll, the magic works without issues. Choose your effect. On a 7 or 9, you get to choose your effect, but you also choose a glitch. The keeper will decide what effect the glitch has. On a miss, you lose control of the magic. This never ends well. By default, the magic has one of the effects listed below. Lasts for about 30 minutes. Does not expose you to danger, unwanted attention, or side effects. If there's a glitch, that might change. So you've got your effect of inflicting harm and changing a weapon to one thing that is beyond human limitations. Bar a place or portal to a specific person. Bar a place, or portal to a specific person or a type of creature. Bar a place or portal. Cast a spell. Do some magic to keep a specific person or a type of creature away from a place or portal. Damn, that was hard I had to read that 3 times to figure out what I was trying to say. Trap a specific person, minion, or monster. Banish a spirit or curse from the person, object, or place it inhabits. Summon a monster into the world. Communicate with something that you do not share a language with. Observe another place or time. Heal 1 harm from an injury, or cure a disease, or neutralize a poison. Glitches, the effect is weakened. The effect is of a short duration. You take 1 harm, ignoring armor. Magic draws immediate unwelcome attention, or it has a problematic side effect, and the keeper may require one of the following like materials: how long the spell will take to cast, ritual chanting or gestures, drawing arcane symbols, you needing 1 or more people to help cast a spell. You need to refer to a tome of magic for the details. If you want to do magic that goes beyond this effect, it counts as big magic. Capital B magic, capital B big magic. Big magic uses different rules described below. This is interesting because it seems like this is a little different and more expanded than the spell slinger playbook we looked at but I guess those were playbook moves. As long as I guess a spell slinger could do things like trap a specific person, minion, or monster, even if they didn't have like a spell in their repertoire that like you picked during character creation in your playbook. I guess they could still do that. Yes, here's some big magic. Sometimes everyday spells and rituals that they use magic basic move aren't enough. Big magic covers everything more powerful. So just bringing someone back from the dead, or opening a portal to another dimension, Big magic is both more powerful and more dangerous. Decide what magical effect you want to make happen and tell the keeper. They will determine what you must do in order to cast. The options, and the keeper can pick more than one, are you need to spend a lot of time researching the magical ritual. You need to experiment with the spell. It'll fail before you get it right. You need some rare and weird ingredients and supplies. Spell will take a long time. You need a lot of people, 2, 3, 17, or 7, 13 or more. Spell needs to be cast at a particular place or time. You need to use magic as part of the ritual, perhaps to summon a monster, communicate with something, or borrow the portal you opened. It'll have a specific side effect or danger. Then once you know the requirements, you need to arrange them. Once you've done that, the magical effect you want will simply happen. You don't need to roll any move for big magic itself, but you might need to roll some other moves as you try to meet the requirements. Okay, works. Okay, so fighting. Don't always go right to rolling dice for kick some ass. That move puts you in danger of harm as well as your enemy. If you can find a way to attack without putting yourself in danger, then you can inflict harm on the enemy without suffering any to yourself and therefore not needing to succeed on a roll. So kick some ass only gets involved as a move, rolling dice, if you have some danger of getting harmed too. It's not just inflict harm. You can inflict harm without getting in danger and you don't have to roll. So for instance, if you had a sniper rifle and the person had no idea that you were there and you were taking a shot, 150 yards out, now I could see there being a case for doing something like performing under pressure, act under pressure. I could see that happening, but that's kind of up to interpretation. This kind of makes it seems like you don't necessarily have to do that. If your hunter's been caught unarmed or is just fighting with fists, you do 0 harm, hand, intimate. You still hurt things if you have a bonus to harm. That could come from getting a 10 or more on a kick some ass roll or a move you have. If your hunter grabs a random object to use as a weapon, decide between you and the keeper how it's rated. When you take harm, the keeper will tell you what happened and how many points of harm it was. Mark off that number of boxes on your harm track. There will be an additional effect. The keeper will tell you what it is. Injury severity depends on how much harm you've suffered. 0 harm wounds only have minor short-term effects. 4 to 7 harm wounds are serious and unstable. They'll get worse unless treated. Mark the unstable box. 8 or more harm will kill a normal human, including a hunter. Know that armor reduces the harm suffered by the number of points it's rated for. I think all that tracks. So it seems like as long as you are only taking 0, 1, 2 harm wounds, that like maybe they get healed up at the end of the encounter potentially, or like if maybe there's a action or a move you can take to heal points of harm. Only when you take we'll see. I think it's like within the next page or so. Monsters are harm. Monsters are usually a lot harder to kill than humans. Minions can be as well. All monsters and some minions have weaknesses. That means they cannot be killed unless you use their weaknesses against them. So that's part of the mystery of the session, of the game, is like, okay, what is the weakness of this monster? Weaknesses can include things be used as a specific weapon, specific methods of attack, something to do like a magical ritual or burial procedure, harmful environment. You know what the monster's weakness is, use it. If you don't know what its weakness, you got to find out using your moves. And if you don't use a creature's weakness, it will come back even if you win the fight. Healing. So a 0 harm wound goes right away after you get it. It can cause a momentary problem, but after that, it's purely cosmetic. Moderate wounds, 1 to 3, will improve when your hunter has a chance to rest up or get some first aid treatment. This reduces an injury by 1. First aid does not normally require a move. It's just regular practice. Hunter moves that provide healing may be used in addition to first aid. You can only benefit from first aid once per injury or condition. So is the assumption that the whole fight comes down to 1 roll and like any harm you take in any like 1 instance is done in like one roll? So like if they do to you 3 harm, but that's the only harm you're taking, because it like the way it's worded, I like, it's okay. So moderate wounds, anything like if you are between 1 and 3 harm, you have moderate wound. If you have serious wounds, 4+ harm, it requires treatment. They're normally unstable, meaning that you will worsen if untreated. The keeper will tell you to mark off another point of harm. Left too long, serious wounds will kill you. Move tells you that the injury is now stable. you can erase the mark in the unstable box. If you take more harm and are still at 4 harm or more, then your injuries become unstable again. For serious wounds, first aid heals 1 harm, but it will still be unstable. Counts as treatment, depends on the wound, but it'll usually be a hunter's healing move, time in an infirmary, visit to a doctor or emergency room, or a magic spell. Healing moves will mention how many harm they heal. There's a similar like track in Fate, you know, this kind of stacking of injury. I feel like this isn't, and I could just be having a bit of a moment where like I'm reading something wrong or just looking at it too hard. To me, there seems to be a disconnect to me of knowing how much harm is someone taking in one time. Because the way it reads, it's as if you're only ever going to take harm, like get harmed all at once, as opposed to there being these like rounds of combat where you're taking multiple harm, like getting harmed multiple times, which is what I'm used to, obviously, coming from like D&D and Pathfinder, which probably isn't true for this game. But it's just kind of how like I'm having to mentally adjust to like what does combat look like. And because I'm reading about healing, but I haven't actually gotten to like, is there an encounter mode for this game? What does a round of combat look like? Or is there not? And it's all in fiction just as it comes up. I guess we'll see. So after a mystery is concluded, but before the next one, all injured hunters get some healing. If there was a while to rest, heal all your harm. If there was no time to rest, then heal 1 harm. And if someone wants to bring a slain hunter or someone else back from the dead, this requires big magic, which we read about, but there's an extra step. You have to roll, when you return to life, roll weird, minus weird. So subtract 3 if you have plus 3 weird, and add 1 from minus weird. The weirder you are, the weirder it is when you come back from the dead. So if you rolled a 10 over, you've changed a little. You get to mark an experience, pick any one of the options below. On a 7 and 9, you come back as one of these. A little broken, a little different, very different, change to a new playbook. Wow. Your revival satisfies an ancient prophecy. Something comes back with you. You are the one who brought you back as a favor. Then on a miss, you come back broken. You come back disabled. I don't love that word or this. Take a -1 to a rating to -2 at worst. That's just not a good word for what this is. And I hope that this gets changed in the revised version that is on pre-order right now. Maybe I'm being overly sensitive, but I feel like there's got to be a better way to describe this than being disabled. Like, does -1 to like my rating in sharp going to a -1 all of a sudden make me like, what does that look like? Describing it as disabled makes it look a certain way, and I don't think that's what they mean. So I just hope Evil Hat and like the creators change that for this updated version coming out in 2023. Your revival satisfies an ancient, dark, and terrible prophecy. Something comes back with you. It is an immediate and pressing danger, or you and the one you brought back owes a huge debt. Powerful spirit monster doing fun. Luck counter. Every hunter has a certain amount of luck they can call on in emergencies. When you mark off a point of luck, you choose one of the following lucky breaks. Decrease a wound you just suffered to 0 harm, or after you roll, retroactively change the result to a 12. Those are some huge results, especially knowing now, like, to expect big harms. Being able to use a luck point, a amount of luck to just make that 0 is huge and adds to survivability of the characters. When you've marked off all of your luck, the keeper is allowed to hit you with more bad stuff. Fate will be looking for some payback. If your playbook includes some fate-related stuff, such as the Chosen's fate or the Spooky's dark side, running out of luck means all that bad stuff is going to start happening. All right, I think we're going to stop there and maybe start looking at gear and and more stuff. Cool. That's basically the end. We've got gear. So it looks like there's all weapons have tags. Let's push this through, and then we just call this the end. This is the players, the hunter section, and then we'll do another video for keepers. You can also get new gear when you take certain improvements. If you want something that you can't just buy, like a flamethrower, or something you don't have the resources to get, then you need to do something special. Tell the keeper what you're doing and play through the acquisition attempt to see how well it works. Same thing can apply if you want an ally, a team under your command, or something else hard to arrange, like an expert's haven. Okay, that's cool. Like getting new gear, you either just get it if you can buy it, or if it's accessible. If you don't, like go on a little side mission. Weapons have some tags with i.e. a list of descriptions that describe that they work. All weapons have a harm and range tag that lets you know how much harm an injury from it causes and how far away the target can be. For example, a power drill is a 2-harm hand loud messy weapon. Hand is the range tag, so it's in your hand, so it's whatever your reach of your hand is. Loud and messy are descriptive tags. Area means it can hit multiple foes. You divide the harm you inflict, or you may divide the harm you inflict among multiple targets. Balanced, easy to wield and keep your grip on. Barrier does harm to anything that passes through. Counts as armor against any attacks that pass through it. Close, effective at fairly close quarters. Outside, arm's reach, but not too far. Far is effective at long range. Fire sets things on fire. Forceful pushes things around, allowing you to force them where you want them, in addition to normal attack effects. And within arm's reach effect. Life drain, transfers life energy. The wielder is healed for as many points of harm as were afflicted. If you inflict 2 harm, and you heal 2 harm from your injury, that's super powerful. V, this weapon is heavy and difficult to wield. Holy. This will be more effective against monsters with a weakness to holy items. Ignore armor. Ignores protective armor. Armor has no effect on this harm. If armor has the magic tag, then the attacker needs both ignore armor and magic to bypass the armor. Innocuous, doesn't draw suspicion. Intimate, effective at the closest of quarters within the embrace of your foe. Loud, loud enough that it draws attention. Magic, enchanted, so can affect certain monsters and armors that are proof against normal weapons. Mini, these weapons are small enough that you can carry a large number of them. The material. Messy, spreads a lot of blood and gore around. Quick, fast to repair and attack with, giving you a better chance of going first. Reload. This weapon has limited ammunition and may run out and need to be reloaded. Restraining. A flexible attack entangles or grabs a victim. Slow. This weapon is slow to prepare and attack with. Small. The weapon is tiny and easy to conceal. Unreliable. The weapon needs regular cleaning and maintenance, otherwise it's just isn't going to work. Useful. Other uses outside of violence. Valuable. Antique or made of valuable materials. Volatile. Dangerous and unstable. Cool. I think like all this other stuff makes sense with gear stuff. Gear tags. Defining tags for a piece of gear gives you a definition of what it can do and the advantages or disadvantages of using it. Tags come into play by opening up possibilities for the hunters. For example, night vision goggles tags see in the dark allows you to follow a creature's tags even when it's dark. If tags aren't quite enough, you can also define a custom move for gear. Custom moves are dealt with in detail. Hey, 296, that's in 180 pages. Good grief. It seems like there's a lot of rules left, unless the mystery takes up a lot of space. There's like a introductory mystery included in this book, and maybe custom gears after it, but like this seemed like a lot, and I kind of get a sense of how things will work. I'm assuming more details are in the keeper section. It's just kind of interesting. All right, I saw level up when looking at when we were looking at the playbooks, but at the end of each session, the keeper asked the following questions. Did we conclude the current mystery? Did we save someone else's certain death or worse? Did we learn something new and important about the world? Did we learn something new and important about one of the hunters? If you get 1 or 2 yes answers, hunter marks 1 experience. If you get 3 or 4, each hunter marks 2. Easy enough. We saw improvements in the playbooks. I'm not going to renegotiate or relook at those. There are like specific ones, or certain playbooks have specific ones, which is saw that with the advanced improvements, which are interesting. There's also advanced moves, which it looks like it was something you can basically do as part of like the advanced improvements, and it looks like it's just an added effect when you roll a 12 or higher on that skill or that rating. And then yeah, there's advanced improvements that are specific for the playbook. So summary of the session from the hunter's point of view: do all the started mystery moves, get the first clue from the keeper and make a plan, investigate the mystery. When you know what you're hunting, work out its weakness and where to find it. Whenever a roll totals 6 or less, mark experience. Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Whenever a move tells you to, mark experience. When you mark your 5th experience point level up, select an improvement and reset your experience to 0. Protect all the innocent bystanders. Go and kill the monster. When you're done, answer the end of session experience questions and mark any experience you earned from the answers. All right, so that was the Hunters section, the Get Ready for Action chapter in the Monsters of the Week rulebook. Do another video taking a look at least the start of the Keeper section. There's, as I've mentioned, there's a couple of areas where I would love some more guidance for information on how things work. I understand why game developers and writers separate things out into a player section and to a GM or keepers section. But I feel like by putting some things like how an encounter might work and like what rounds of combat looks like in the keeper section, players don't feel like they're expected to know how it works, and it's just the keeper who's gotta manage all that. And that always kind of like frustrates me. Like, it shouldn't be the keeper only who understands how that works. Though I understand developers are trying to keep like the bar of entry as low as possible for new players. So giving them a section like, hey players, this is for you. We're going to keep it as focused on you and your player character as much as possible without getting too nitty gritty in the woods. And we'll rely on the keeper to explain things to you. Feels like I understand why they do it, but it just creates opportunities for unvoiced expectations or taking options in character creation, assuming you know how they work, but then finding out in game you don't because that information wasn't provided like with all of your things in your players section of the book. There's less of that in something like Pathfinder, which is obviously like way more buy-in from the player, but I feel like if I read the player section of a book, I should know how the game works and how a session is going to look like for the most part. With the keeper section probably like being things like variant rules or advice on how to do things or when to do things, or and tables to help you like randomly come up with things like on the fly. Less like, here's how combat works. And here's the order of operations. That kind of stuff is like everybody at the table needs to know that in order to make informed decisions. And it might be reading into this too much, but I feel like that's kind of like my base level. I don't think Monsters of the Week has hit that yet, just the way they've got the book formatted. But it just puts so much on the keeper to manage and to communicate to the players. When like just put a couple more sections, put another smaller chapter in with the hunter stuff of like, here's how things work, especially with combat, but like even just a back and forth. Some things, the fact that in the introduction of the book, like in its opening chapter, it mentions that the keeper doesn't need dice. And that's kind of, I think it's in parenthetical, but that's a huge implication for like how the game works, that like the players might not know that they should care, but they probably should care. It's like, keeper doesn't need dice because the keeper's never going to roll. Like, all the rolls are made by the players, which is very different for people coming from different systems. And I know that you assume nothing, but I just feel like there are certain things, and now like the book is kind of like, it's not old. It's, I mean, this version was published in 2015. So we're coming up on 8 years, and there's a reason, I'm sure there's a reason why they're publishing a new version in hardback with like some additional stuff. But I think I understand Power by the Apocalypse system better now with like moves. Though I'm sure each Power by the Apocalypse game has its own set of basic moves. Playbooks augment those. But again, questions of like, okay, can the spell slinger only do use magic as described in their playbook, or can they do all the things also described in the basic use magic stuff too? Because normally the more specific rule overrides the more generic one. So I'm tempted to say like, well, the spell slingers use magic stuff is specific, so like it can only do that. And now I'm feeling kind of conscious about, oh, and what I'm thinking of is just for kick some ass, rolling weird, and then you get to do this stuff, and then you have use magic addition to that. So I'm you know, on that stuff, I'm off base. I just looked at that. I can show you. Spell Slinger combat magic. You have the stuff that we were looking at in the first video, bases and effects. These are when you do combat magic. You don't kick ass with tough, you kick ass with weird. And when you kick ass with weird is when you do like the fire blast or the force wall, that kind of thing. So a little off base there. So they still have access to the full basic use magic. But again, like kick some ass wasn't described before the playbooks. So like it relied on, like I had to read Spell Slinger and the playbook of how the game should work for my character before I got to how the game worked and what the basic actions do. Little things like that that I think, just my personal take. Just my personal take, that's all this is. Did you enjoy this video? I hope you did. I am enjoying Monster of the Week. I think it's a very good system. I can see why it's popular. It seems like a very low barrier of entry. For players, it's probably pretty easy to understand and where to go to get started. And I love the idea of playbooks replacing sheets. Some of the like terminology and stuff is a little strange, but how it works makes sense, and it probably is really free-flowing and resolves quickly, which I think if you're playing Monster of the Week is things that you're hoping for when playing this game. So if you have thoughts or comments or corrections on anything that we talked about in the first two videos, leave a comment in the doobie-doo. I've got links in the doobie-doo for things like where to pick up the core rule book. You can pre-order the new one. You can also back the new Monster of the Week book that is being crowdfunded right now on BackerKit. You can check that out. And I'm gonna have some more videos going. I'm kind of in a groove with these. I'm just kind of recording as I feel the need. I've got more level up advanced 5e videos planned. I will continue to read Monsters of the Week. The more I talk about Modiphius 2D20 makes me think I should do a more in-depth video on 2D20. So if you're looking for that, let me know. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not.